The problem is that this roster is not really suffice in order for us to look forward for the next 5 years. This roster needs a complete reconstruction. Not just because of LeBron James's age, but the fit as well. We need guys that can go out and defend on the perimeter. We need guys that can go out and shoot the ball. We need size. We need a whole hell of a lot of things out there in order for the Lakers to turn themselves into more of a championship competitor next season. So what I want to do right now is go through the Lakers roster as it is and kind of go through player by player and see who I want to keep and who I want to let go of going into next season. Obviously, guys have contracts. Some we may not be able to get rid of, even though I want them to get rid of. But it'll be a fun little game for us to kind of go through and see who we can keep and who we can get rid of going into next season. All right, so first on the list, we're going to start with DeAndre Ayton. Wow, a mixed bag for DeAndre Ayton for the 2025-26 season. I'm going to kind of go through his stats here. In 72 games, he averaged 27.2 minutes. Field goal percentage was 67.1. Didn't shoot any threes. Surprising. Free throw percentage was 64.5. He averaged 8 rebounds a game, 0.8 in assist, 1 block a game, 0.6 in steals. Personal fouls was 2.2. Turnovers was 1.2. And throughout the regular season, averaged 12.5 points per game. Although those numbers aren't horrific, they are down from his career totals in terms of in minutes throughout his career. He's averaged 30 minutes a game. Field goal percentage is 59.9. 3-point percentage is 23.0. Free throws are 74.1. Rebounds, he averages 10 rebounds throughout his career a game. 1.5 assists. 1 block a game. That's about average. 0.7 in steals, 2.6 in personal fouls, and averages 15.8 throughout his career. So obviously the stats were down this year, and it has been a really, really mixed bag for DeAndre Ayton. He's had times where you just look at him and you're starting to compare him. At least I started to compare him to Kwame Brown back in the 2005-2006 season with Kobe. I mean, it was really starting to head that way. His energy, the way he just trailed up and down the floor, it just looked, his defense, everything looked like he just, and Stephen A. Smith really pointed this out as well, talking about, where is he? This guy's donning a purple and gold Lakers uniform, yet he's not showing up. He's playing the games, but there's just some games where you just look at it and where's DeAndre Ayton? And that was a lot of the case this season. But then there was times where DeAndre Ayton looked really, really well. And, his touch is really good inside the post. His shooting, there was times throughout the season where he was defending really well. I remember a game against Denver where he was bodying up Jokic. That's what you wanted to see from DeAndre Ayton. Catching lobs, just being another offensive threat out there, and also just being a big body on the floor. But we didn't get that as consistently as we should have, considering this guy was once at an all-star type level. But it's a mixed bag from DeAndre Ayton. There was even times throughout the course of the regular season where JJ Redick decided not to play him in crunch moments, coming down to the wire in late games. He just had him on the bench. He opted to play Jackson Hayes, or he opted just to go centerless out there, and sometimes playing LeBron out there, just in terms of what he thought was going to be better for the team. And, a guy that is our starting center, a guy that was all-star caliber, you would not expect that he wouldn't be there on the final moments of the floor, but that was definitely the case a lot this year. And so it begs into question, would you want DeAndre Ayton back? Do you want a guy back in a second round postseason series matchup against the Oklahoma City Thunder is giving you 3 points in Game 3? I mean, we can look at some of these numbers here throughout the semifinals against OKC. In Game 1, that wasn't too bad. He had 10 points off of, he plugged in 27 minutes. Field goal percentage was 41.7. So looking at Game 2, it was Game 2 where he only had 3 points. But 3 points in Game 2 off of 27 minutes. Field goal percentage was 14.3. Had 10 rebounds in that game at least, but only 3 points. Game 3 was more the same. Well, he had 10 points in game 3, 55.6 field goal percentage in 24 minutes, 6 rebounds. That's okay, but it's not the level at which we want him to be at, in which we needed him to be at if we had any chance of winning. And in game 4, 6 points, in 21 minutes. So definitely in games 3 and 4, he was definitely unplayable on the floor for JJ Redick. And so, is that a guy that you want to bring in back next year? Now, the tricky thing is that DeAndre Ayton has a player option. So if he wants to, he cannot decline his option this year, and he can remain on the team going into next season. And in 2027, he will become a free agent. But right now, it's very unclear in terms of the market value that DeAndre Ayton is going to have for himself. He could very well opt into next year and be our starting center again. The problem is that that's not going to be what we want in terms of us competing. We're going to want to get another bruising big guy out there that can rebound, that can be a body, that can defend, that is not going to take plays off, that's going to give it 100% of the time, his 100%. And so you did not see that at all from DeAndre Ayton last year. And you know what? And if that guy's our starting center, it's not going to bode well for our competitiveness. So with that said, I'm going to look for trades. I'm going to look to cut bait on DeAndre Ayton as best as possible. And if he doesn't decide to stay with the team, if he decides to cut his option with the Lakers and then test free agency, you know what? Thank you, DeAndre Ayton. Thank you for choosing us last year. But you know what? I think for the overall well-being of the team, we can just part our ways and we could say goodbye at this moment, because he's not going to be a futuristic player for the Lakers in terms of fitting with Luka Doncic or fitting in our 5-year plan, as I like to say. Next on the list is Rui Hachimura. Rui, this has been his 4th, 5th year on the Lakers. It seems like he has been, besides LeBron James, our biggest, longest tenured Laker on the team. It really has been. He's been with the team since 2023, I think. So maybe 4 or 5 years now, seasons, not years, seasons, with the Lakers. But in terms of this year, I think it was a much improvement for Rui Hachimura. My biggest gripe with Rui Hachimura has been that he has been so inconsistent with the Lakers. There's moments where he looks great, and I always compare him to what Lamar Odom meant to the 2009, 2008, 10 Lakers in terms of what he brought to this team, because it wasn't about Lamar Odom. It was about Kobe, Powell, Andrew Bynum, Derek Fisher, Ron Artest, and then you had Lamar Odom that, man, when he was on, the Lakers were seemingly unbeatable. And I think that's almost what Rui Hachimura means to the Lakers in terms of, if this guy's shooting is on, if his defense is on par with us covering out on these active wings and guards, the Lakers are very, very unbeatable. Throughout the season, Rui Hachimura played in 68 games, averaged 28.3 minutes, 51.4 field goal, 44.4 from three-point land, 69.4 from free throws, rebounds were 3.3, assists were 0.8, blocks were 0.3, steals were 0.6, personal fouls kept that down to 1.6, turnovers also kept it down to 0.6, and averaged 11.5 points per game. So a really, really, a decent regular season. But in the postseason, he really stepped it up. In 10 postseason games, he really just cranked up the numbers. 38.6 minutes per game, 54.9 field goal percentage, 56.9 from three-point land, 72.7 from free throws, 4 rebounds a game, 1.7 assists, 0.6 in blocks, steals were 0.9, personal fouls, even though that was up, it was 2.8, and then turnovers were 0.9, and averaging 17.5 points per game. Now look, he really cranked it up during the regular season, and I think behind LeBron James was our second best player on the team, even ahead of Austin Reeves. And so, my biggest gripe, like I said, has been his inconsistency. And sometimes he's had trouble staying on the floor due to injuries. But do I want him back? I think absolutely I want him back. The problem is that Rui Hachimura might have played himself into a bigger contract because of his playoff performance. And I think he is the NBA's leading scorer in terms of 3-point percentage in NBA playoff history. That is unbelievable to think about. Rui Hachimura. Now, Rui's already making around $16 million a year, and I can see him looking for an increase in between 20 to 25 million per year. And I'm not quite sure, what the name of the contract the Lakers can offer him in terms of that's definitely not the veterans minimum. But what that means is that the Lakers are going to have to dig into their pockets in terms of paying Rui Hachimura if they want to keep him and keep his services. The man is 28 years old, so if you're to give him a $20 million contract, maybe over the next 3 to 4 years, you're basically paying him $80 million to stay with the Lakers. By the time he finishes that, he'll be 32. That does fit in terms of the 5-year plan for the Lakers in terms of building around Luka. But it seems like, it's going to be a decision for the Lakers to reach into their pockets and pay the man when they have also Austin Reeves to pay. They have possibly LeBron James to pay. It's going to be a big decision. But if it was me, I would bring Rui Hachimura back. And now we have Luke Kennard. Kennard was traded to the Lakers at the trade deadline from the Atlanta Hawks. We traded away Gabe Vincent. Farewell, Gabe Vincent. I'm sure Lakers Nation and all fans around the Lakers sorely miss Gabe. Yeah, just strings at my heart. In terms of how much we may miss Gabe Vincent. Just him just jogging up and down the court, doing cardio. Really just pulls strings at my heart. But in return we have Luke Kennard. So Kennard took him a little while to warm up to the Lakers offense and JJ Redick. But in the postseason, it was pretty impressive in terms of how he was able to, find his groove. Also, at the end of the season, when we went 16-2 in the month of March, he had that game winner against Orlando. So that was kind of like his welcoming party to the Lakers. But in the postseason, he averaged 32.6 points per game, 48.8 field goal percentage, 47.4 from 3-point. He kind of struggled a little bit, I know that seems high. That is still high. But it seemed like he was struggling a little bit in those games. If you're just watching it with the eyeball test, free throw percentage was 82.6, 3.5 rebounds, 2.3 assists, 0.1 blocks, 0.9 steals, 1.6 personal fouls. Turnovers was 1.4 and averaged 11.5 points per game. So, it seemed like he was somebody that could fit around Luka Doncic for the next several years, in terms of his shooting, but it did dip a little bit because we had to use him almost, especially in that Houston series where he did remarkably well. He was almost our number 2, number 3 option for that series. And so, when it came to Oklahoma City, even though Austin Reeves was back, his production dipped a little bit because we still kind of had to utilize him in those moments. I really didn't see a whole lot of production from him in majority of those games during the Oklahoma City series. And so, brings into question again, do you want him back? I would bring him back for sure. I'm not sure if he fits into that veteran's minimum contract, but I wouldn't pay him anything more than $10 million a year. If I'm the Lakers, if he's going to get it somewhere else, it's not going to be the end of the world. But if I'm bringing him back, which I am, if I'm making the decisions, I would say let's bring back Luke Kennard on a team-friendly deal. Next on the list is Marcus Smart. So what a pickup for the Lakers in the offseason. This guy was almost at near, on that level of, if he gets waived by the Washington Wizards, if he gets waived by the Memphis Grizzlies, I wasn't too sure if teams were going to give him another shot, and the Lakers did. They acquired him last year in the offseason, and so a big pickup, a huge, and no pun intended, a smart pickup by the Lakers, because also, look, this guy was coming off of injury, so you couldn't blame anybody for for being hesitant about him. He hadn't played in a year and a half before coming to the Lakers, and so maybe it was just a gut instinct thing with Rob Pelinka bringing in Marcus Smart, but it paid off huge. This guy was a tremendous asset for the Lakers in terms of the regular season, the off season. I'm not even going to get into the stats here. Just let's see here. Well, a little bit. Let's get into it. Averaged 12.9 points per game in the postseason, and then 9 points in the regular season. But it's not about the stats. It's about what he brings. His tenacity, his efficiency, his shot selection, the energy that he brings. It was all on display all throughout the year. And I kind of compare him to what Ron Artest was for the Lakers in terms of a guy that had a troubled background. You weren't quite sure about him coming onto the team, but just fit so well. Fit so well around Luka. Fit so well around LeBron James. Fit so well in terms of JJ Redick's offense and what we need. And we need more guys like Marcus Smart. If we could have more guys like Marcus Smart on this team, the Lakers would be a championship level team for sure. But this guy, man, just clutch shots over clutch shots, the right decision, the right pass, the right shot. I can't say enough about Marcus Smart this season. So he's obviously a guy that I would like to bring back. You can give him more than the veterans minimum, but I wouldn't give him a lengthy contract. That's the only thing I wouldn't give him. Wouldn't give him a lengthy contract because you just don't know how long he can hold up for. But you get him for the next 2-3 years, I think that's going to serve the Lakers well. And I would definitely try to get him back into the fold. Up next is Jake LaRavia, the forward that played his first season with the Lakers this year. It started off well for Jake, and I don't know, man. It just seemed like there was moments where it kind of looked like, okay, Jake, like, yeah, you're getting it. But majority throughout the season, it was not something that I would expect that the Lakers would say, my gosh, he had a great season, because he really didn't. It was a lot of struggle out there. Averaged 8.2 points per game, 4.0 rebounds, 1.8 assists, and 45.9 field goal percentage. There's times out there, like I said, that it seemed like he was covering well and shooting the ball at a good clip, but majority it was just him clanking shots, him just getting beat off the dribble. And if it's up to me, sorry Jake, you're not a bad player. Jake is not a bad player, and there's still room for Jake to grow. But I think look, we got to look for, in terms of wing players, because that's exactly what he is right now. In terms of wing players, we need guys that are going to be more tenacious out there. We need guys that are going to be able to shoot the ball at a higher clip. We need guys that are going to be able to defend, be 3-and-D guys around Luka Doncic. So I don't think he fits that 5-year plan around Luka Doncic. I'd let him go elsewhere. Sorry, Jake, you're gone. All right, up on the list here is Jackson Hayes. So Jackson just finished playing his third season with the Lakers, I believe. Third season. Averaged this year 7.5 points per game, 4.1 rebounds, 0.9 assists, and the field goal percentage was 75.6. So not terrible for Jackson Hayes. And I thought he actually had a better season than the way he did last year. And last year he was a starting center after we traded AD for Luka. So I think last year he was really beaten up in that first round series of the against the Minnesota Timberwolves. He was really, really hounded, and he was unplayable throughout the stretch of that series last year. And so he came in this year. I think he put on some muscle. He obviously looked just more solid out there. His touch around the rim, lobbing. Obviously, he's a great lob threat. And he served his purpose as the backup center under DeAndre Ayton. So, if the Lakers want to bring him back, it wouldn't be the most terrible thing, again, at backup center, but I think we could do better. We could do better with Jackson Hayes. So I'm going to say, Jackson, sorry, you're going to be gone. If it's up to me, I'm going to try and look for trades for you, or I'm just going to not re-sign you. Because I think the Lakers should try and do better at the backup center position, and definitely at the starting center position, because it has not gone well. I mean, look at as much as Jackson Hayes has improved, he still is not a serviceable center out there at times, and gets he's kind of just lollygagging and kind of like a big goof. Even though it was better this season, I think that lots of Laker fans can concur that. Just looking at Jackson Hayes out there just is really frustrating sometimes. And so with that, we're going to say sayonara, Jackson. Up next is Jared Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, again, a longest tenured Laker. Actually, I think his tenure, I don't know. Him and Rui are about the same in terms of their tenure. But he's been with the team for quite a while now, too. This is what I mean, before we get to Vanderbilt. But there's still the remnants of the AD LeBron Lakers teams, like Vanderbilt, Jackson Hayes. Who else was I mentioning earlier? Rui Hachimura. Those guys have been around for a while. So Jared Vanderbilt. Jared Vanderbilt, this is his fourth season with the Lakers now, third or fourth. In that first season when we acquired him, he came from the Russell Westbrook trade, if you can believe that. He came from the Russell Westbrook trade. He was playing with, I believe, either Minnesota or Utah. It was when we got him, Jared Vanderbilt was exactly what we needed. A tenacious 3-and-D, not even 3, but like a tenacious wing player that can play really great D, with lots of energy out there. Cover out. Remember the way he was playing against Steph Curry in that 2023 playoff series, really just making it difficult for him, suffocating him. But then he got injured, and he didn't play for about a year, and that really slowed him down. And we've seen spurts of it at times since he's come back from injury, but it hasn't really been there at all. And so Jared Vanderbilt this season, wasn't great. It was 4.4 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, 1.3 assists, and 47.1. But, it just seems like, his defensive tenacity has gone down a little bit, even though he was pretty much on the floor for a lot of these games. So in this regular season, he played 65 games. But just not a guy that you can really depend on that's going to cover your best player, in which we thought he could be when we acquired him. So Vanderbilt, I thank you for what you've done. Obviously, look, he had that. He's a very tough guy. He's a very, very tough guy. That bone sticking out of his pinky was very frightening to look at. But, again, he's not fitting around that 5-year plan for the Lakers. He's 27 years old, still a young guy, can still contribute, but it's not happening with the Lakers, and it's every year has gone down since that 2023 season. And so I'm going to say sayonara to Jared Vanderbilt, and try and replace him with another guy, a younger guy that can be that defensive wing that we're looking for. Now we're going to be talking about Dalton Connect. Look, Dalton, this is an automatic. We need to get rid of him. I mean, he has not been the same since we have traded him. Well, we tried to trade him to Charlotte for who's that center's name? Mark Williams? I think it was Mark Williams. Yeah, we tried trading him to Charlotte. That trade got nixed because of Mark Williams' his physical. And so Dalton coming back last year, almost with his tail tucked between his legs and his head down, He was not the same player in which we thought we were going to get when we drafted him in 2024. This year was very, very low for Dalton in terms of minutes. Let's see here. He averaged, 10 minutes a game. And I thought it was up last year. I really thought it was up last year. Last year, his career, he's averaging 15.5. So it was definitely up last year. But this year, 4.2 points per game, 1.4 blocks, 0.4 steals, 45.5 from field goal, and his 3-point percentage this year is 34.2. So a guy that, we thought we had huge expectations for Dalton Connect because of the way he played in college, and unfairly, we really, really thought this guy could be something for us, and, just has not panned out whatsoever. I think maybe just a fresh coat of paint for this guy on another team might reinvigorate his career, but it's not going to happen with the Lakers. So this one's an automatic. He has got to go. It's got to go. Look at Maxi Kleber. Look, I'm not even going to get into his stats. This guy has barely played for the Lakers. He's been the backup to the backup. Hasn't even been really like a stretch guy for us. He's the automatic. Has to go. Bronny James. We can talk about Bronny James for a second here. 2.9 points per game, 0.5 rebounds, 1.2 assists, 40.9 from field goal percentage, 3-point percentage this season, 38.6, and that's way better than Dalton Connect, who's shooting at 33, 34. So look, not terrible for Bronny James. He played in 42 games this season. 8.9 minutes per game. He's just a guy that's been on the bottom of the barrel in terms of minutes. Obviously, he did get some run in that Houston series because we absolutely just needed him to be. We needed a body out there. So he played in 8 postseason games this year, and was more or less the same. Averaging 1.5 points per game. He was just a body out there. Didn't really make any noise whatsoever. The biggest thing for Bronny is what's going to happen with his career once LeBron James is off the Lakers. LeBron could decide to come back this year. LeBron could decide to retire. LeBron could decide to go play in Cleveland or New York or wherever he wants. What's going to happen with Bronny? Is Bronny going to decide to be his own man and say, look, I'm going to look for deals on my own. I'm going to look, to stay with the Lakers if they want him. In terms of contract, I think he still has a team option. Or let me look this up. Oh, wow. So Bronny still has another 2 years under contract for the Lakers. So when he got drafted, my God, the Lakers gave him a 4-year, almost $8 million a year contract. And so breaking that down, he still has 2 more years left on that deal. Sorry, it's not $8 million a year. It's about $2.2 million a year, almost 2.3. And so, altogether, earning $8 million throughout that 4-year contract, he still has 2 more years left. And so, even if LeBron James decides to go, will the Lakers keep him? Will they not? Will they decide to put him in a deal wherever LeBron's going? Again, he has to make decisions on his own, and the Lakers have to make a decision. Do they want to keep him around for when LeBron's gone? That's the biggest thing that comes to my mind. So lots of decisions to make there, and has nothing really to do with his ability, because his ability, he's developed during his time with the Lakers so far. He's been playing in the G League. He's been playing pretty well there. He's obviously a guy that we can throw in the postseason and not embarrass himself. That too. He's not embarrassing himself out there. So that, to me, that's a win. And so, altogether, beyond his abilities on the court, will the Lakers decide to keep him? And will he decide to, again, when his contract is up, make a move on his own? So you have guys also like Nick Smith Jr., Adu Thiero, that guys who are G Leaguers this year, Drew Timme as well. Adu Thiero, I want to point out, I think out of Nick Smith, Drew Timme, Adu has the biggest potential out of all of them. Nick Smith is good, but I can see his ceiling at where it is. Adu, I think he could really develop under that 5-year plan. Like I like to talk about, that 5-year plan for Luka Doncic fitting around him. I mean, they threw him in against in that series against Oklahoma City, kind of just saying, hey, fuck it, let's let the kid, let's let him surprise us, see what he can do. And I think he was active out there, had really good energy, was catching lobs, and that's something he could really develop into. And I think he can develop into somebody that's going to be really lanky out there, explosive, high energy, good defense. If he could develop into that, man, it's going to do wonders for his career. And so he's somebody that I would like to keep. Nick Smith Jr., he can do without. Drew Timme, you can do without. But yeah, Adu, I would like to see Adu develop more onto what the Lakers have for him. And I think he has a bright future ahead. Now, obviously, we're talking about, LeBron James. We're talking about Austin Reeves here. I didn't forget about them. But those two guys, we talked about it last episode. The Lakers that's their 2 main priorities this offseason. One is to decide what kind of contract they're going to offer Austin Reeves, whether they want to give him a max or something under the max. That all has to fit under what their calculations are in terms of what they want to pay. And also, giving the guy a fair contract in which, he's going to deserve and demand. Austin Reeves is going to demand something really, really high in that realm. And there's going to be a lot of pursuiters out there to give him what he wants. I was looking at the Knicks last year and I was like, man, I could see Austin Reeves on the Knicks. I could also see him on a bunch of teams doing really, really well. And so there's going to be some pursuiters out there. It's going to be up to the Lakers to determine what they want in terms of money and fitting around Luka Doncic and big picture, because Austin Reeves is a big picture guy. Not only does he, fit around the 5-year plan, but does that get you to the championship? Does it get you to competing for a championship, to the finals? Does that bring your team closer? And so that's a big decision the Lakers are going to have to make on Austin Reeves. Does he fit and bring you guys closer and closer and closer?